The theories of first language acquisition. Before we tackle this topic, I want to read you something from Noam Chomsky. Humans are designed to walk. That they are taught to walk is impossible. Pretty much the same is true with language. Nobody taught us language. In fact, you cannot prevent a child from learning it. So, what is language acquisition? Language acquisition is the process by which humans acquire the capacity to perceive and comprehend language as well as to produce and use words, sentence to communicate. Gain the ability to be aware of language and to understand it. Before we proceed, many have been always fascinated with the human linguistic ability, particularly on where it started, or some call it the initial acquisition. Numerous studies have conducted to find out how humans are able to learn language and use it for day-to-day communication. Thus, here are some of the many theories that have emerged to understand how we learn the language we speak today. We have here the first theory, which is behaviorism or behaviorist theory. The second theory, innateness or nativist theory, is known as universal grammar. The third theory, which is learning or cognitive theory. The fourth theory, social or interactionist theory. Before we proceed, I want to introduce you all guys the first theorist of the language acquisition. We have here Boris Frederick Skinner, as known as B.F. Skinner. He is the behaviorist theorist, the American psychologist, behaviorist, author, inventor, social philosopher, and an Edgar Professor of Psychology at Harvard University from 1958 to 1974. According to Skinner, language is acquired through principles of conditioning, including association, imitation, and reinforcement. According to this theory, children learn words by associating sound with objects, action, and events. Skinner proposed that language acquisition is really one big and complex case of conditioning, and its core, it is all pattern recognition. Language acquisition is a stimulus response mechanism. In the early stages of language development, an infant doesn't have the ability to talk, but he or she listens. This means that understanding comes first. The infant receives comprehensible input. In the behaviorist view, language is reinforced input. The theory can be summed up as listen, motivating operation; imitate, discriminative stimuli; receive a reward, response; repeat or recall, reinforcing stimuli. Let me introduce you the second theorist of the first language acquisition, Abraham Noam Chomsky, the father of modern linguistics, an American linguist, philosopher, cognitive scientist, historian, social critic, political activist, and one of the founders of the field of cognitive science. And his theory in the first language acquisition is innateness or nativist theory. Chomsky claims that language acquisition is greatly dependent upon a linguistic faculty, which he terms as LAD. The LAD is an innate mechanism or process that allows children to develop language skills or universal grammar, around which all languages are built. According to Chomsky, language is an innate faculty He also asserts that human beings are biologically wired for language, that we have a language acquisition device, or LAD, that allows us to learn any language. Linguistics ability is innate to us, based on the assumption that there are core and language-specific rules in all languages. When a learner comes across language-specific, he will tend to refer to his first language, or L1. Thus, if a learner discovers that a second language, L2, rule is not in accordance with the universal rule, he will attempt to interpret the rule by means of the equivalent rule in his language 1, or first language. Evidence to support Chomsky's theory: when mommy going shop, Sammy kicking ball, or cat drinking milk. Incorrect use of plurals shows that children are applying the general rules. Example: children tend to say foots instead of feet, fishes of fish, or instead of fish, and mouses instead of mice. Now, let's proceed to the third theory of the first language acquisition, which is learning or cognitive theory. Before that, let me introduce you the theorist of this theory. Jean Piaget. He is a Swiss psychologist, a genetic epistemologist, and known for his theory of cognitive development. According to Jean Piaget, the cognitive theory of language acquisition recognizes that both process, behaviorist and nativist, have their role to play. The idea is that humans are able to learn language because of their ability to learn. It is because of human cognitive development. Piaget theory. Piaget believed that the understanding of concepts must first come before language. The more nuanced and layered our thinking, the more textured the language that comes out. That is why children talk one way and adults talk a different way. As kids see it. My husband and I went to a baseball game together with our toddler Kevin. After the game, we get to meet the star player of his dad's favorite team, who in turn noticed our son raised his right hand and greeted Kevin saying, "Give me 5." Kevin gave him 5 coins from his pocket instead. So this explains that the kids understand it literally, but the adult meant it in other way. That's why the kid gave him 5 peso coins or 5 coins, right? So let's proceed to the fourth and final theory of the first language acquisition, which is social or interactionist theory. Let me introduce you the theorist of this theory, Lev Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist known for his sociocultural. He believed that social interaction plays a critical role in children's learning. Vygotsky noted, however, that culture profoundly influenced this process. According to him, interactionists argue that language development is both biological and social, that language is influenced by the desire of children to communicate with others. Social interaction to learn language for communication use. Nobody really knows how it got into our heads, but language is something we breathe in and out every moment of our lives. It's everywhere, and we know everyone is good at it, the language nerds. Before that, Those are the most influential theories of language acquisition. Each has its merits, and each gives a certain view of how we learn language. Needless to say, more research and study is needed in this topic. There is still so much to discover and so much to learn in this area of linguistics. So these are the sources. That would be all of my report. That would be the end of my report.